Welcome. God Morgan. Thank you for joining us today. I am Megan Bunnell from the shops at the Corning Museum of Glass. I'm one of the members of our buying team. And today, we are going to experience a demonstration that's a little different than originally planned. As you might have heard, Bertil Vallien, our guest of honor, has had some health issues and is not able to join us. While Bertil is home resting, we are here to carry on the celebration of his 60 years of glassmaking. For 60 years, Bertil has used curiosity to break boundaries, develop new techniques, and redefine the artist-maker relationship. The unique partnership between Kosta Boda and Bertil has proven that an artist can truly work with a manufacturer to express a rich body of work. With the help from my friends from Kosta Boda and the amazing support of my colleagues, we have pivoted to create a very special event here for you today. We have 2 stars on the rise today. I am pleased to introduce you to my new friend, Cecilia Kling, Bertil Vallien's most trusted assistant for over 20 years. Cecilia is here with us in Bertil's absence, and Bertil has handed her the glass ladle so that we can enjoy this experience of watching his sculptures come to life. Following the casting demonstration, we have Simone Clineo from Kosta Boda here to share his glassmaking process. Simone was generous enough to hop on a plane at the last minute to join us. And he is an artist on the rise, one to be watched. I'm certain this demonstration will be intriguing. As part of this celebration, you are invited to explore our display Passing Through, a collection of pieces representing the artistry of Bertil Vallien. It is available for you to peruse in our courtyard amphitheater. I would like to thank Kosta Boda for their partnership, with a special thanks to Aman, Maria, Cecilia, and Osa. They helped me create the vision to develop this celebration, and we would not have this experience without them. Thank you. I would like to thank my many museum colleagues who have worked tirelessly with me to create this celebration as well. We have a wonderful team here, and it's an honor to work here. I would like to thank you for joining us, and of course, Bertil Vallien for everything he has contributed to our industry. The one and the only Bertil Vallien is someone to be celebrated. Now, in the next few moments, please open your minds, be curious, and enjoy this moment as we celebrate Bertil Vallien.
All right, excellent. Thank you. All right, excellent. Thank you, Megan. I do want to take a moment also to thank Megan Bunnell, the buyer for our shops. This wouldn't be possible without Megan's energy. She's absolutely the project champion. And to have Bertil's team here, to be able to share with you this amazing process live here in person and online is really a gift to us all. It unlocks secrets of an amazing 60-year career that Bertil Vallien has had. And let's take a moment to thank Megan and all the work she's put in to make this amazing thing happen that we can all be here today to witness. It's really a privilege and an honor to be able to be here today with Cecilia and to see this all come together. So, we've got you for 2 hours. We're here for a demonstration that will really be amazing. We're going to be, again, unlocking the secrets of Bertil Vallien's work, primarily the sandcasting process, which he has pioneered, revolutionized, really become the leading glass artist, one of the leading glass artists working today. And it's all based on this amazing process that he does like no one else. A lot of people do sandcasting. No one does it like Bertil and his team. So it's really going to be cool today to watch this happen. One of the nice things, oftentimes you'll see a sandcast happening, glass pouring into the mold. What you don't often get to see is preparing the mold. So we're going to take a little bit of time here in the beginning to actually prepare a mold. Because in principle, it's simple, right? You take a form and you press it into sand, you pull the form out, and then you fill it with glass. Easy, right? I think it's like a painting, right? You have a canvas and you splash some color on it and you have a painting, right? It's easy. But what isn't easy is the artistry, the thought, the imagery, the meaning, all of the feeling behind the composition, the way it comes together, the different elements that only happen through decades of experience that we get to see today. So, as Megan introduced, Cecilia is here working on behalf of Bertil, who unfortunately couldn't be with us today. And we wish Bertil all the best. I hope you're watching, Bertil, because this is really going to be an amazing opportunity to see this happen. But let's all give Cecilia a round of applause for being here and representing Bertil. Cecilia, how long have you worked with Bertil? 20 years, right? So I don't think there's anyone closer to the process who knows more about what's happening in Bertil's work than Cecilia. So thank you for making the trip to Sweden to be part of this today. I always like to introduce our team here. So supporting Cecilia and her work here is our own Hot Glass team. So big shout out to Tom Ryder, Jesse Rassid, Helen Tagler, Katie Hubbs, and Jeff Mack, who are going to be helping out today. So big round of applause for all of them. One of the other amazing things that the Corning Museum of Glass does through the support of everyone here who works here and all the people who support the Corning Museum is talk about what we do, right? So it can happen here and the couple hundred of us can watch it and that's great. But what's really amazing is how the museum documents and how we save this knowledge and how we share this knowledge. And none of that would be possible without the support of our video team. And on stage today is our lead in the video department, Brad Petroka. So a round of applause for Brad, making some great images. Emily Smith here is working with our digital media team and will be doing the social media. So Emily, welcome. And also Brady's here fielding the online questions. So a round of applause to everyone who will be documenting today and saving this for posterity. You can all relive this experience on YouTube in a couple of days, which is a very, very cool thing that the museum does and something I'm very proud of and something that we've evolved to an amazing success. Our YouTube channel is over 200,000 subscribers now, and what I really love is whenever I go to a college or a university, students always tell us what an amazing resource our YouTube channel is. So in learning how to do these different techniques, it's just amazing to be able to have that at your fingertips and to watch the greatest casting team in the world create a mold and fill it with glass. What an amazing thing the museum is doing. So thank you, Brad, and the whole digital team for bringing that all to life. This is an interactive experience, and I'm really happy to have you all here today. I don't want anyone leaving curious about anything. So if you leave and you have a question in your mind, we haven't done our job. So make sure you wave, raise your hand as we go along, ask us questions. We're here to help you understand more about this process, understand the value of these pieces, the history of Kosta Boda, the relationship with Bertil. All of those things are really important to us for understanding the importance of this work and the value of this work and the historical significance of the work that we're making here today. So please ask questions. That goes for online too. So I'd love to welcome all of our online guests. We're live streaming this on YouTube and Facebook, right? Yep. So thanks for everyone who's tuning in online. And if you have questions, I think you know how to chime in too. And Brady is here to relay your questions to me as they come in. Okay. So let's start from the very beginning. I've learned through doing this job a long time that there's nothing I can't explain. We'll start from the very beginning. So we're going to be doing a process called sand casting. So we start out with sand. So our first job when we were talking to Megan about this was to find sand. So we know where to get sand to make our glass. We all know that glass is made primarily of pure silica sand. There's also sand for casting. So if you needed to go find sand for casting, who would you call? What we decided to do was call foundry suppliers, right? Because foundries also cast iron into sand. So the engine block on your car, it might have been cast in sand. So the first thing we had to do was find some olivine sand. So it was down in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, right? Somewhere down there, somewhere down in Pennsylvania, we found this foundry supplier, and they sold really nice fine mesh olivine sand. And what we want is a sand that won't interact with the hot glass. We want a sand that has a fine mesh, so it gives a nice smooth surface on the surface of the molds. You know, if it's too coarse, you might see that grain in the glass. You can pick up an amazing amount of detail, and when you look at the work over in the shops, you'll see there's an amazing amount of detail in these sand castings. And it all starts with finding the right sand. And what we like to say is that the glass in our furnace isn't just sand. You have to add other things in it to give it the right consistency to work with it properly. And the same is true for this casting sand. So there were a couple of ingredients that we had to talk to Bertil about, that we had to understand ourselves to make sure that the sand had the right consistency to do this work. So it's mostly olivine sand. It's about, we're mixing 100-pound batches here. So we took 96 pounds of olivine sand, and we added 4 pounds of bentonite, which is more of a clay, right? Because sand alone, you know, if you have a handful of sand and you grip it tightly, the tighter you grip, the more it slips through your fingers, right? So it wouldn't have the body to make a nice mold. So we add that olivine sand, or I'm sorry, that bentonite sort of clay body in there, and that gives it the grip a little bit so it holds together nicely. And then Bertil had a secret ingredient that required some translation. It turns out that it's cornstarch. So we had to put about a 1/4 pound of cornstarch in this as well, and I still don't know why. Cecilia said it has to do with the consistency too. If you put too much cornstarch in, it gets a little gummy, but I think it affects the way that the glass interfaces with the sand. So it has some cornstarch, and then to feel, a little bit of water. So Tom, writer over there, he mixed this up, made how much? 700 pounds? 900 pounds. So I have plenty of sand for our 2-hour demo today. We have 900 pounds. We mixed it up in batches, put it in these 5-gallon pails, and with that, we've been making some molds, and we're making this mold today. So that's our sand, okay? So sand casting, you start with your sand, the right consistency, so you can press it in the mold. You want to make sure that you hold the form, just like a sandcastle, right? On the beach with your kids, you have to have the sand the right consistency, or you pull the bucket off and it just slumps away. So we have our sand in the right consistency, and then, you know, sand casting, we're going to take glass from our main furnace, our 1,000-pound melting furnace here. This is our furnace that holds 1,000 pounds of glass, and that's as wide as our door goes open. And so we're going to scoop glass out of the furnace and pour it right into the mold. And that part's exciting too. It's exciting for us because we don't do it every day. So it's a little too exciting, but we have been practicing, and our ladle team are getting more confident with doing this. Some people sandcast all the day. I'm sure many of you have seen demos in here. And we usually form glass on the end of a blowpipe, right? We gather molten glass out of there on the end of a pipe, shape it up, and inflate it. But Cecilia, on behalf of Bertil, will not be blowing glass today. We do have, as Megan mentioned, Simon will be coming on for the second half of this demo, and we will be doing we'll be working some blown pieces, some hollow pieces. His design revolves around blown glass, so you'll be seeing that today as well. So as Cecilia's working away here, right now she's concerned with getting the form. She's using a variety of simple tools, you know, just shaped sticks to create the pattern or the form that she's working on, and making sure it even has some texture in there. It looks like she's used some combs to go through there to get texture. It has different shaped forms. Cecilia prepared a few of these molds already. So I think you guys arrived on Thursday, right? On Friday, right? And so they've been working throughout the weekend. And I'm gonna embarrass Cecilia a little bit, because on the weekend we were preparing some of these molds and they didn't have the tools they needed, some of these shaped wooden blocks. And so some people from our team were running over to the workshop and cutting out different shaped wooden tools And we made a little house and some other things to press into the sand. And then on Monday, we opened the box that was under the table, and it had all the wooden shaping tools in it. So we just didn't look hard enough to find it, but we found it. So now Cecilia has all of her tools, all of her shaping tools. I think she thought, well, maybe we thought we were going to put those in the carry-on, and because they're just wood. As a glassmaker, you have to be careful what you take through the TSA, right? Because, I took a piece of lead glass through the TSA once. You know what lead glass looks like on an X-ray? A big black block. So, you as a glassmaker, we have these fine powders that we use to color the glass that Cecilia will be using. You don't want to take a bag of an unidentified fine powder through the TSA either. So I'm glad they shipped everything. So they didn't have to worry about that. This is a. Is it working? Okay. Oh boy, yeah. So this is our. I'm going to go spray this in the sink. This is our graphite spray, and we got to make sure that it has the right pattern. Again, there's a little bit of a translation difference. So they have these sprayers in Sweden, but it turns out they don't put out as much of the liquid as the sprayer that we got from Home Depot. So it's roughly the same thing, but this one just acts a little bit differently. So Jesse's going to go adjust the spray. But what we're going to spray on there now that she's formed the mold is a mixture of alcohol and graphite, and that will just put a skin on it that doesn't stick to the glass as much as the sand might. So just a little bit of a release, we call it, to keep it from sticking. Graphite is the messiest thing in any hot shop, so appreciate that. And this one has a wide spray too, so yeah. It's plenty. There we go. A perfect mist. This is just powdered graphite like you'd lubricate your zipper or a lock. It's the same stuff, just in an alcohol solution. We don't want to introduce a lot of moisture in there. If we have too much moisture in the mold as we cast the hot glass in it, does anybody have an idea of what might happen? What's that? Steam would create what in the glass? Bubbles. Yep. Yeah, so we put alcohol in this so that the liquid evaporates off because we don't want the mold steaming. Okay, and then we talked a little bit about powder, right? So this is a powdered glass color sifting into the mold. And Brad's getting right in there so you can see some of the texture in the mold. And there's a face pressed down in there in a Y shape. Cecilia, what does Bertil call these tall objects? A watcher? Yep, so this is a watcher form. He's well known for several different forms. A watcher is one of them. We'll be actually going to be doing at least 2 other castings beside this, maybe 3 other castings this morning. So we're doing a watcher, we have some boats prepared, and then there's another big tablet-shaped piece that I'm excited to see. So adding some of the color here. And the colored glass will fuse into the clear glass when the hot glass is cast on it. Another thing that we had to learn through preparing for this was the right temperature for the glass. So the right temperature for blowing glass is around 2,100 degrees. Turns out the right temperature for casting glass is more around 2,300 degrees. And it has to do with how fluid the glass is and how it pours and thank you. I have graphite on my fingers, and there's about 100% chance at some point that I'm going to scratch my nose. So Jesse, thank you. Hopefully I haven't done it already. Yes? What the color she's using? It looks like, let's see. We'll see if it's marked. I mean, it's a blue. $40. There's aqua. I don't know what 40 is. Do you? I know 41 is cobalt blue. So we have an aqua that she's used. So in the center is more the cobalty blue, and on the edges so far is an aqua blue. And this is a red. Is this like a coral red?
Call it brains mix.
Brains?
Brains mix.
Oh. So this is a, I didn't know if I was lost in translation, but it wasn't. This is actually called the brains mix. So this is a special mix of powdered colors that Bertil, obviously it's going to be reds. When we're blowing glass, a lot of times when we use color and then you gather over them and inflate them, they change a lot. I've seen that with the colors that Bertil sifts in the molds here, it's pretty much what you see is what you get. They don't change a whole lot with the glass as much as they do when we put them on the surface of a bubble and blow them out. Because in this application, they're not expanding, right? It's just you lay a glass on top of them and it is where it is. So, got the brains on there. Brains mixes. I would love to know the rest of the story on the brains mix. And now, on many of these pieces, especially the boats, you'll see little spiral forms. A lot of times along the keel, down the center of the boat pieces, you'll see these little spirals of glass. We had one of the first questions online is this furnace working or flame working? And the interesting thing is that there's flame working involved too. So there are little components that Bertil puts in the molds that are pre-made, and some of them are flame worked. So we have some fine canes that are pre-made. Do you do these on the torch or the furnace?
Mix them together.
Yeah, probably in the hot shop. Yeah. So these are made in the hot shop. I'm sure it's not going to help much to see this, but it's just a spiral. So you really just take, let's see, this looks like a white core, just with black on one side of it. So if you can imagine something. When we usually do it, it's about the size and shape of a Coke can, and then you heat it up and you pull it and twist it, and the colors spiral together. So this is black and white, pulled and twisted and spiraled together. They probably started with less glass because this is a very narrow cane, but that's how that component is made. It's ready. Fantastic. So, and we also have, let's see, there's a piece of dichroic glass in there, which is a glass that has a coating on it, so a metallic oxide coating that makes it shiny. And then in terms of components that you're going to put in here as it's being cast, so what is the plan for putting things in?
We're going to put the head in here.
Okay.
Just put it right directly in the sand.
Okay. Great. And then no other floating components in there? Okay. On this one, there'll be no other floating components, but this is Cecilia's bag of tricks over here. She has some little copper cutouts, which you'll see. Oh, there is a ladder. So there's a little flame-worked ladder that she's putting in, and some little copper cutouts. So you can include copper in glass. You can cast copper into glass. It's not necessarily compatible. Sometimes glass makers talk about what's compatible with glass. That means as the material heats and cools, it expands and contracts. And you need a material that fits with it, that will also expand and contract the same way that glass will. Copper is just a ductile metal. It just happens to be close enough in terms of compatibility and soft enough that as glass heats and cools and expands and contracts, it doesn't crack it. The danger of putting foreign objects in glass is that it will break the glass, but obviously Bertil has learned over the years of what he can put in there. So most of the components are glass, and we know the glass is compatible, and then some of the components, other than glass, the only thing that will go in there is copper, because we know copper will fit. All right, so that is the mold prep. Now, Tom and Jesse are going to get geared up to do the ladling. So one of the things about the ladles is that they're heavy. They're heavy to start with. And then when you scoop them full of glass, they're even heavier. So these are ladle cast objects. This is a ladle. It's a pipe cap, an 8-inch pipe cap that you weld on a stick, and then you can scoop the glass out of the furnace with it. So this is obviously fundamentally different than glass blowing. So this is already, 20, 25 pounds, and these guys are going to scoop another 10 pounds of glass in it. And so you see Tom lowered the table down. We're going to cast all of these on lift tables because you don't want to hold it up like this. You want to hold it where it's comfortable, and then carefully pour the glass into the mold. And this is a real art. You'll see that Tom and Jesse do it really well because it's not a precise thing, right? You have a big ladle full of 2,300 degree glass and you're dumping it into a mold that's relatively fragile-ish, right? So you don't want to lap it over the side. If they lap it over the side, kind of ruins the process. It'll drag the sand into the mold. And then if it is salvageable, you have to do hours and hours of cold working. So you really want to get this right. And this one it's narrow down at the end. So you'll see Tom and Jesse will probably start more towards the middle and work the ladle down to the end and then back towards the middle and then start at the middle again and work towards the top. And between castings, between pours, Cecilia will be adding another glass component. Where'd our bag of tricks go? Did you take that off stage? Must have. She'll be adding a head that's in this pickup box. So the glass components that we add to this need to be warm. So there you can see a bunch of them in the box, some heads. So the heads are made out of our glass. So we made some of these components here in Corning. We shipped them to Sweden, and Bertil painted them. So these are painted with enamels on the surface to add the personality, to add the story and the depth to them. And then they shipped them back here. So we know that these glass components are compatible with our own glass, so that when we include them in there, they won't create problems. So yes. Yep. Yep. So the question is, are the things that are placed inside of these, are they representative of something? Do they have meaning? Or are they just pattern and decoration? So we'll get a couple. I will address your question as well as I can, but let us get a couple of ladles in there first. So starting out with the first scoop. So Tom and Helen working together. Tom makes a nice dip. Helen cleans the ladle off, and then we go right into the mold, all the way down to that narrow end. Oh, you know what I think that flame is? It might be some alcohol that's left in where that first ladle dropped, or where that first splat went down. So there's one dip. All right, excuse me. All right, here comes Jesse with the second ladle. He's going towards the top. Need a little bit more glass. And then the final ladle. So Cecilia said one more smallish one. We don't want to overfill it, obviously. There we go. So starting in the center, moving to the top. They have some to fill right at the top. Cecilia has worked with Bertil over 20 years, and I know a lot of the ladle ladle casters at Kosta Boda have also worked with him for many decades. So we're absolutely doing the best we can. And it looks like a really nice, successful pour. All right, so now a little bit of torch work here, which is always a component of it. There are a couple things you can do with the torches. You can help to smooth together some of the lines where the ladles have come together. And then if there are any bubbles in there, you can sort of chase them out with a hot torch. So you can work them to the surface with that hot torch. All right, the ladles are in. Let's give our casting crew a big round of applause. Nice job, Tom and Jesse. Now, the good news is that we're going to do it a couple more times, too, right? So that all happened pretty fast, but we're going to be doing it again. So you get to see that whole process happen once again. Now, we don't want to put this right into the annealing oven. When you see us make a hollow piece, you kind of have to rush it right into the annealing oven because the piece is hollow and it's thinner and it's losing its temperature more quickly. You actually don't want to do that with cast glass. You want to let it cool off a little bit because if it goes in the oven too hot and it stays too hot, the glass can actually start to form crystals, and it's called devitrification, and that is a cloudy surface on the glass. So you really want to let it cool down a little bit before it goes into the oven. Okay, so the question about the imagery and what's happening within the casting. So, Bertil is, of course, extremely careful about the way he represents meaning in his objects. So everything does have meaning to Bertil. Bertil doesn't say what everything and every piece means to him because it also has meaning to you, right? So us as admirers, as connoisseurs and collectors, I think one of the things that is very important to Bertil and very important to many artists is that they mean something to us, right? So if we knew exactly what these all mean to Bertil, and he's talked about inspiration, and we can read about different inspiration, and he's talked a lot about the shape of his boats. I have a quote over there I'll read about the boat objects. We can understand what it means to him. But I think one of the fun things when I look at art, and when I look at things like this, is to think about how it makes me feel and how I relate to it. So there are layers of meaning to great art, right? You all appreciate them and absorb them in different ways. What I love about working at this museum, and I've worked here a very long time, is that I first came here as an admirer. And I walked through the galleries and I looked at all these different voices in glass and the way different people represented themselves in glass. And I was inspired by that and moved by that. So, all right. Ooh, it's a beauty. So the face in there, that's really cool. I didn't notice that as it was happening, but the face that Cecilia put in this one, she actually put in upside down, but it's coated with a gold metallic color. And so you're actually looking through the glass at the face inside. Sometimes they'll put them right side up so you can see sort of the profile of the face, but in this one it's more upside down. So right now, Tom and Jesse are crawling in a 900-degree oven because that's fun. And we have that thing into the annealer. Nice work. So when we finish a piece of glass, it doesn't matter if it's a flame-worked pieces also have to be annealed. If it's a small thing that we make or a larger thing, it has to go into that cooling oven to sit overnight. Well, this will sit in there for about 5 days and cool off really gradually. The thicker something is, the slower it needs to cool. So this will cool very gradually so that it will stay in one piece. If you let it sit out too long, the glass would start to break apart. And you notice that we just put that thing in there, we call it the flask, the steel pan, the sand and all, so that we didn't have to take it out of there. We don't have to worry about it deforming or moving as it anneals in there. Okay, so this is a great time, as some of you are doing, to get up and stretch your legs. We're going to be doing a couple more castings. It's also a great time for questions, so if anyone has any questions. Yep. I'm just going to come out here so I can hear you better. Sorry. Sorry. Yep. It was Cecilia's call. So when they were casting it, they could have put a little bit more on there, but it smoothed together nicely, and it's just the way that casting went. Yep. Yes. Hey, Jim. Yeah. Yep. So the difference is, well, the mold material. So last night they were cast, those ones were cast in a graphite mold, so a machined graphite mold. And I suppose it's possible to put a graphite mold in an annealer, but I think the advantage of the graphite mold is that you can use it over and over again, and that you can pop those out of there. So it's the mold material. We also had to wait a lot longer, right? I don't know if you'd want to do this large of a casting out of graphite. You know, I'm guessing that he wouldn't want to make one of his meter-long boats in a graphite mold because you'd have to pull it out of there, right? But the objects that last night Bertil, the team made a couple of the castings in here, and they were the boat forms, and they were cast in a graphite form, and we popped them out of there and we put them in the oven over here. They didn't have to stay in the sand mold, but I think it's just because of the scale. I don't know. That makes sense to me. Hopefully, I think to the Kosta team, nobody's given me the dirty look, but I think that's probably the reason. Okay, so the team is reconvening. There's some nice slides playing. This looks like a piece of art, but it's actually just components. This is a really interesting thing that Bertil has pioneered. So these are, he forms the head, and then they make a mold off of the head. And I'm not sure, do you know what material that he sculpts the head with to start with when he's making these? Silicone, and then they make a mold out of that. And then these are cast sand, and the sand is rigidized. So the sand is bonded together, and that can be a component in these castings, a component of the mold, right? So if you see a face sticking into the back of one of Bertil's objects, it was a pre-cast, rigidized piece of sand that will, and you see all the red ones there? Those are those components. So those are pre-cast sand. And again, this is something that Bertil pioneered that's just so cool. And something that I'm a little envious of because I don't really know how to do it, but it's very cool. And it's just such a neat component to have that negative space in these castings on the back mostly. So this is a prepared mold, and let's see. Oh, I'm trying to figure out, that must be from last night. I think this is an image inside of that kiln from last night. So we did some castings last night, and I think this is just an image showing some of those metallic faces like Cecilia used in the last pour. Okay, so this is all prepared. We're not going to be adding anything else to these, but we have, I think, maybe 3 more of these to cast. So we'll see these guys in action. They're going to have sore muscles tonight. Are there any other questions? Yep. Yep. It doesn't, so the things that Cecilia placed in the mold, the ones that are larger need to be warm. So if they're, the heads are the size of a racquetball or so, those have enough mass that if you put hot glass on them, they would explode. She's putting some very small glass components in there, like that pulled cane that I showed you, and these little ladders and things. They're just small enough that they won't crack. And the copper doesn't need to be warm, and the sand components don't need to be warm because the hot glass doesn't make them expand or contract enough that would affect it. Good question. Anything else while I'm up here? Thank you all for coming today. It's so great to have a nice crowd here. To check this out and to see this in person. Hey, Brady, how are we doing online? Do we have any good questions online? Okay. They forgot that on the first one. So they did the ladler's salute there. Ready to go on this one. This is a big mold, so they got the big ladles. There we go. Got a nice big scoop. we go. Can we zoom in on the overhead camera at all? We have pan, tilt, zoom cameras. Hopefully we get a little closer in there. There we go. Nice. Oh, can't breathe anymore. The nose is covered. So again, that's the positive precast face pressing up into the back of the mold. And then you're going to put another ladle in there. I love seeing that glass flow, so having that furnace nice and hot. Okay, so Cecilia has a pre-made painted component that she's going to add to the casting. Go. Comes ladle number 3. How many of you are going to go home and try sand casting? Doesn't this look like fun? I should have brought my kids here today. I think they would have liked seeing this. All right. Good. So we got Cecilia directing. And now the torch work to work together some of those seams. So we have a nice hot torch here that will help to smooth some of those ladle lines out. There's a nice shot. So you can see there she's chasing a bubble out. Oh yeah, there we go. Brad's back. See the copper component in there as well? There's 2 copper components sort of down in the lower left and right corner. There's one about the size of a coin. And then the 2 figures holding together at the hands. Very nice. You can see some of that twisted cane in there. Nice thing about so the last one, the crew lifted the flask into the oven. We have this one on our hydraulic table, so we can lower it down to the level of the annealer and just slide it in there. So they're still going to work together. There's that one little spot in the corner there where there's still a casting line. I'm going to work that together a little bit more. when we, it seems like yesterday, but it was in 2016 that we opened this studio. Were any of you here when Bertil was here last time? So we had Bertil here in this studio, and when we built this studio, one of our goals was to be able to host Bertil Vallien. It was a goal in building this space. There's another Italian glassmaker that we also wanted to have here. You may have heard of. He's also pretty well known, and he's also worked here a number of times. But we certainly built infrastructure in this space to specifically host Bertil. We haven't used it. We're going to use it on the largest boat that we'll cast. We have a special casting oven in the back there that was designed just for doing this kind of work. We had these flasks built, knowing that one day we'd hope to have Bertil here, and it really is a dream come true, and it's years of planning that have gone into creating a space like this to host artists like Bertil Vallien. So it's really cool to be able to do this here. Because it's one thing to go to a museum and see art and to see these objects, but to be able to come to a museum and have an experience where you can see the objects, you can witness them in a gallery setting, but also to be able to walk into a space right next door and to see those objects being made, I think is just very special. It's something we're super proud of. Yep. Is it possible to reuse the glass that's left in the ladles? And yep, it is. That's called the heel. So the guys have been knocking the heels out into a bucket of water here, and clear glass is recyclable, and it really never sticks to the ladle. So sometimes when we have a blowpipe, there's another one in the box. Nice work, team. So when we're blowing glass, there's always a little bit of glass left on the pipe, and that glass sort of sheds off the pipe, but when it does that, it brings some of the pipe scale with it. The nice thing about ladle casting is that the heel never really sticks to the ladle, and when you bonk it out of there, it's pretty clean glass still, so you can just melt it back down. Obviously, if a casting goes south and you don't like it, that glass you can't reuse. You know, that glass has all those different components in it, color and copper and things like that that you couldn't reuse. All right, it's like Christmas. Who's excited to see what comes out next? Cecilia has been working hard over the last couple of days, and I'm excited about this one. Did you have a question? Yeah. So these pieces will be in the oven for 5 days. So we're going to hold them at a annealing temperature for 24 hours. And then so actually about 6 days, and then over 5 days they'll cool off. So even after they cool off for 5 days, we probably won't open the ovens. We'll probably just let it sit until it's absolutely at room temperature. The cycle will leave them about 120 degrees, and then we'll probably just let them sit until they're ready to cast. I don't think it matters as long as it's copper. I mean, I'm sure pure copper would work best, but I don't know if there's, I don't know enough about copper and copper alloys to know if this is an alloy or if it's just pure copper. I'm guessing it might just be pure copper, though. Another good question from online. Yep. It is yet to be determined. What happens with these objects. So they will certainly have to be approved, as first quality pieces. I was chatting with Megan about this. We don't think Bertil's work has been made without his presence before, so we need to. But there will be some cold work that needs to be done. It's cold working that we're capable of doing here. So, finishing up the edge, working the surface a little bit. But it's really up to the Kosta Boda team and Bertil's team to determine after. All right, so we have the boat form. Probably the most well-known form that Bertil makes. And I said I had a little quote. There's some of these, maybe I'll bring the pile out here, but this is a really nice little flyer newspaper that was made up for this event. But I think why everyone is intrigued with the boat form is that they just convey so much meaning. You know, there's just so much packed in, and it means so much to so many different people. Here's what he has to say about this. I'm a sailor, I always have been. I've seen men who fish, refugees who flee for their lives. I like the vessel's resemblance to a seed capsule. It can contain and carry any and all life forms. It tickles our imagination. Where's it going? Where did it come from? The human body could be maybe the most fragile vessels of all. My glass crafts have been likened to floating dramas. That may be so. I love that. It makes me want one. Okay, so we have, this is the first mold that Cecilia prepared when she came. Did this on Saturday or Sunday, I think. We were worried that the sand would dry out, right, because it's moist when we pack it together. And Cecilia said that sometimes they prepare these molds a month in advance before casting when they're working at Kosta. Cecilia, I'm curious, how many of these would you cast in a day? How many of these would you cast in a day? Like if you had a casting day set up for Bertil at the factory. So you would do a 4-hour run? And how many molds would you do approximately? Maybe 10? Yeah. We'd run out of glass before then. Yeah, in different sizes. So they prepare the molds for months in advance and then have a run of casting. These are cast in a factory that makes all kinds of different things, from these high-end art objects to production pieces as well. For anybody just coming in, welcome. It's glad to have you here today. For anyone joining online again, I just want to say hello from the Corning Museum of Glass team. We're happy to have everyone here to watch this sand casting process. It's something that we last did in 2016 here. Well, no, we did sand casting one other time with Stephanie Trenchard, who's a cast glass artist from Wisconsin, I believe. Yeah. So we cast glass here before. That was a cool thing because Jeff Mack, one of our master glass makers and the manager of hot glass programs here, he sculpted a figure in a dress, and they cast that when we worked on Stephanie's piece. So that was cool. But this is the third time we've sand cast in this shop. Yep, Jay? How do they make the graphite mold? Any machine shop can machine graphite. The hard part is finding a machine shop that will machine graphite because it absolutely makes a mess. So it's a CNC machine mold. The thing is that the graphite just gets everywhere. It just, so a machine shop needs to be set up for machining graphite. Somebody asked me this the other day, like, how do they make graphite? And I don't know what the context was. But yeah, I mean, you can buy graphite for industry. You can buy blocks of graphite. And, so you start with a big chunk of graphite. I have no idea how they make it. I know there are different grades of graphite. You can get more dense and harder and more brittle stuff, or you can get sort of more porous and softer things for different applications. But I need to dig into that a little bit. I don't know enough about it. Yep. Like the molds themselves breaking apart? I think as long as you have, well, sure. I think yes. If you didn't know what you're doing, I think that steel flask holds the mold together. One of the things that Cecilia brings is the knowledge of how tight to pack the sand. So that's a factor too. So if you didn't pack it tight enough, it might pull apart when the weight of the glass gets in there. But we haven't had the issue. I don't think it's a common issue, no. All right, here we go again. right, and Cecilia's getting in the preheated pickup oven, getting some components out. She lets them sit in our Kevlar glove there, and then we'll place it right where she wants it. And this is just a flat sort of tongue of glass that was painted with that cross shape. Ladle number 2. We found that you really want that glass to flow out very smoothly and not lap on itself too much, because when it laps together, that's when you might get some little bubbles. Yes, sir. Nope. No, so the question was, can the mold be reused? We reuse the flask, of course, the steel that contains it, but the sand is, I think they call it a waste mold or something, so the sand has to be, sand has to be destroyed when you pull the glass out. Now, we were talking a little bit ago about those graphite molds, and the great thing about the graphite molds is that you can reuse it pretty much as long and as much as you would want. So now filling up towards the top. Oh, we got the heel coming out there a little bit. So, and then comes the head. There's a head going in now. And then also another one of those tongues that was painted with a body form. This is taking a lot of glass. Yeah. So sometimes when you scoop in the tank, you can leave a little trail of bubbles in the pot. So they're just going to get another scoop. That one had some bubbles in it. We want to make sure that we get as clean of a ladle as we can. So Tom's going to have to take a look in there and find a patch without so much bubbles in it. So you actually use the nose of the ladle to push the top layer of the glass away, and then dipped. If there are bubbles in there, they will have risen to the top. So Tom got a nice clean ladle. All right. Looks like that may be it. So again, now comes time to drawing some bubbles out, smoothing it out a little bit. Yes. That is an oxygen natural gas torch. So it's a flame working torch. Really a beautiful bench torch that most people use for flame working. Of the flame, probably about 4,000 degrees. Yeah, they're super hot. Did you have another question, or are you just getting my attention? Okay. Oh, really? So it's a molten. It's actually poured as well. Oh, yeah. No, I would never think so. Yeah, that's awesome. So we happen to have a graphite expert in the audience, and he's answered my curious question for the day, and that is that graphite also can be cast in a molten form. And so they make different forms, including crucibles out of graphite. So there we go. The more you know. We're learning together. All right. Beautiful. All right. Okay, so now we're going to. All right, so now we're going to be switching gears. Looks like the team's getting the shop set up to switch to some glass blowing next. Jeff? Jeff, did you hear that? Yep, okay. All right, excellent. So we're going to be working next on some blown glass forms. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah. Let me see if I can find something to show you here. Hey, Katie, do you know if we have any of the head molds around? I'm over here. Any of the head molds from last night? Yeah. So the question in the audience was, how are some of the inclusions formed? Some of the components that we put inside of the mold. So the heads were cast. So this is a graphite mold that it's just like a mini casting. You just pour glass in there. So we made a bunch of these, and then we sent them to Bertil, and he painted them. The other pieces that you saw, this is a little bit too much information. I don't want to downplay this, but we dripped glass on the marver. So we gathered glass out and we just let it drip on the table. And so he took those and he painted them. So they were just drips. Sometimes, last time Bertil was here, we spent a day on the bench making rocks with him. So we made these beautiful little rocks, and he put cane patterns on the rocks. So we did spend a lot of time making some of the inclusions too last time. Yep. They're painted. So you use high temperature enamels, which are basically glass powders in a medium, and you can paint it on like paint. So we pre-made those components, sent them to Sweden, and then Bertil spent about a month painting all the components, and then firing them on too, I think, because if it's just enamel, you can scratch it off with your finger, but those I think were fired on, so they baked into the surface. Yeah, with a paintbrush. Oh yeah, yep. So I think I'm not sure, but I think they're probably pre-fused on there. They probably take those components and put them in a kiln and heat them up enough for the enamel to stick to the surface. So that, because if you handle them, like you saw Cecilia grabbing them with the tongs, you don't want that enamel to scrape off. All right, casting number 3 in the oven. Big round of applause for the team once again. Anybody want to come back next Saturday and open that up like Christmas morning with us? It's so exciting. Yeah, we'll fast forward. Okay, cooking show time. Now, this is the lasagna. Yep. I'm sorry. Yeah, so when we do the documentation with our social media and on YouTube, one of the things that we like to do before the video comes out is to get the actual object. So hopefully we'll have those. I'm sure that's Brad's plan. We'll have those and make sure we share them as well. Yep. Okay. So, we are going to be working for another hour now. Our artist designer from Kosta Boda, Simon Clinell, is here with us. He makes some really, really amazing objects that are based on blown forms that are heavily cold worked, picked up, and then manipulated again. And so, first of all, let's give a warm welcome and a big round of applause to Simon. And most of all, because when we learned late last week that Bertil wasn't able to join us, we wanted to make sure that we had a wonderful program for today. And so we asked the Kosta team if there were any other designers that we could invite here last minute to hop on a plane and to cross the pond and to prepare some work and to get themselves mentally ready to be in front of hundreds of people here and thousands of people online. And Simon is the one who said, yeah, that sounds like fun. So again, a big round of applause for Simon for being an awesome sport. And Cecilia doesn't like the spotlight, and she's now sitting down and hiding. But everyone, let's give Cecilia another big round of applause for being here and doing some awesome work. It has been an absolute honor and privilege to be able to learn from Cecilia and to see this method and to be here over the past couple of days and to get a glimpse behind the work that we see from Bertil, that we've seen from Bertil for 60 years. Imagine that, a 60-year career. It's so impressive and so impactful. Okay, so to get started with Simon's work, Jeff Mack, our master glassblower here and manager of hot glass programs, has magically appeared with a gather of glass on the end of his blowpipe. So you might be wondering to yourself, well, why didn't Jeff gather out of our furnace? Well, again, our furnace is at casting temperature now. It's at 2,300 degrees. If Jeff tries to gather on the blowpipe out of that casting furnace, he's going to get just a really light skin of glass on the end of his blowpipe, not enough material really to work with. And because we have 1,000 pounds of glass in our furnace, it's not like we can turn it down now and in 10 minutes it will be at the right temperature for us to work. It doesn't cool down that fast. It's too much mass. And so we happen to have a second furnace behind the hood here. We have, I guess the secret is going to be out now. We have a secret glass studio on the back side of this hood where we do special projects, and some of our glass makers can make their personal work on their own time. So this is called our back shop, our skunk work shop. And Jeff is actually going to be gathering out of our furnace in the back shop because it's at the right temperature. So when Jeff disappears and he magically comes back with a gather of glass, it's just because he has to use our other furnace. Yep, so there's a question online about the companion pieces. We made some of these cast graphite, or some of these cast glass heads during last night's Behind the Glass lecture. They're called the companion. They're amazing little objects. They're actually available in the shops, and they all have a message in copper, a little copper inclusion right on the forehead. My favorite is why. There's one that says why. There's one that says love, and a couple other messages. So they're very cool pieces, and to answer the question online, they're cast in that graphite mold. I have a little hanger on the back. You can hang them up. Okay, so the pieces that Simon has made are heavily cold worked, and he actually did the cold working yesterday. And did it. We have a cold shop in the basement down here below the hot shop, and he used a miter wheel. He used a V-shaped cutting wheel, and he cut sort of a waffle pattern on the surface of some vessels. Hey, Helen, is there any chance that you're free to run downstairs and get the other blank that's down there, the lime green one? It's in the batch room. So there's one of the, so as soon as we found out that Simon was coming, one of our first tasks was to make him some blanks. We've never worked with Simon before. Fortunately, there were some of his pieces in the shops here that gave us a decent idea of the scale and the thickness and how the color layers were applied. And so I think it was Friday morning I was talking with Jeff. It was about 9:30. Our public demonstration starts at 10, and that's when Simon sent us the colors and was it Friday morning that you sent all that? Yep. Sent us all the colors that we needed to use and the size and the shapes and everything. And so Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Jeff and I made some of these blown glass blanks, we call them, to pick up and use today for the demonstration. Okay, so just like with Cecilia and Bertil's work, we have some pre-made components heating in an oven, and they've been in that oven all night long. And now Jeff is going to go and get one. There you can see right in that oven. I just stopped talking there because I couldn't handle the drama. Phew. Let's give Jeff a big round of applause. Because of all the things that we were doing today, this was probably the one that was most likely to fail. Now that we've done it successfully, I can say that, right? So sometimes when people have a piece of glass, they're like, well, can you fix it for us? And we say no, because bringing a piece of glass from room temperature up to a annealing temperature, picking it up on a pipe, bringing it up to working temperature is a road that is just full of potholes. There are just so many things that can go wrong. And Jeff just did it very nonchalantly, and it all worked out. So Jeff is a creature of habit, and so he just tried to gather out of the 2,300 degree furnace and realized very quickly that it's real hot in there. And so now he's walking back to the other furnace because these objects that Simon makes, they are individual objects. There's some in there that are just singular pieces. But the really cool ones are a couple of different pieces put together hot. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So Simon cut this piece. Simon, are all the ones that you make like this, is all of the polishing done fire polishing? Yeah, okay. So how many of you have seen Brilliant Cut Glass? The Crystal City. You're at the Crystal City, right? And you've seen Brilliant Cut Glass? So the amazing thing about this piece in Simon's work is that he's using the techniques of Brilliant Cut Glass. But this doesn't look like Brilliant Cut Glass. So he used a very abrasive V-shaped, we call it a miter wheel, to incise these lines in the surface of a blank like this, a vessel like this. And so the Brilliant Cut Glass that was really all the rage right here in Corning in 1870, that was when it was really popular, in the late 1800s. And that's why Corning is the Crystal City, because we were making Brilliant Cut Glass here. So Brilliant Cut Glass is cut with a very rough wheel, usually a miter wheel like this, to get those V-shaped cuts over and over again with beautiful patterns. And then they go through that cut again with a finer wheel, and then they go through that cut again with an even finer wheel, and then they go through that cut again maybe with a sort of a pre-polish wheel. And then they would take those pieces of lead crystal glass and they would dip them in a bath of acid, and it would bring it to a high polish. So Brilliant Cut Glass was polished with hydrofluoric acid, which is not friendly stuff. The cool thing about what Simon is doing here is he is, and you can kind of see it there on that real close up. He polishes these objects not by using hydrofluoric acid and hours of cold working, but by making the cut and then picking it back up and heating it, and the heat softens that abraded surface just enough to bring it to a polish. So these are fire polished pieces. So the other piece that we're going to be picking up, now is it another round one like this, Simon, or are you picking up a square one like this next? Okay. Okay. So they're going to be picking up another one of these. It's a very similar blank to this one, and combining the two together. Jeff is going to pick this one up differently, though. You can see there's an opening on the top of that one. The next one, he's actually going to pick up on an open rim. So the punny that he's creating now looks more like a plunger, and he's going to stick it right on the rim of the vessel. So the only thing harder than picking up something on a punny out of a pickup box is picking something up on the rim out of the pickup box. So no pressure on Jeff or anything, but is this how you would normally pick these up, or Yeah.
Pretty much. But this one is actually we're gonna flip that one around.
Oh, we're going to flip this one around. Okay. Oh, so he's putting this one on. Oh, okay. I'm getting ahead of myself. I should be asking questions, so Simon's filling me in here. So they're actually going to transfer this one from the punny onto this plunger. That makes me feel better because that's a little safer. We can control that a little bit more. And then the next one they're going to pick up on the punty. So that makes sense. Thank you for clarifying that. Sorry for misleading you all in here. Glad Simon's here. At least somebody knows what they're doing. Simon's a glassblower too. You normally make these all by yourself, right? Or with your team
With the team in Kosta.
at Kosta.
They're called Workshop Number 12, which is the art class team there.
Oh, okay. Nice. Simon works with Workshop Number 12 at Kosta, so you think they're watching? You hope not. Cecilia, which workshop does the casting? If Workshop 12 does the art glass at Kosta, do you know? Are they a special ops? Yeah, the casters, yeah. 14, Workshop 14. Now, is there a Workshop 1 through 11? Used to be. Okay. Okay, nice. So 12 and 14, they're the go-to. So when you guys want to design for Kosta, yep. For Simon's pieces or Bertil's or birds and eggs? Oh, are they? Okay, they're blown. Thank you. And the birds. The birds. We're getting quizzical looks from the Kosta Boda team about the birds. We have to run out there. We'll get back to you on that. The team's discussing. Okay. Where'd Simon go? Simon, you also have a glass studio, right? Where's your glass studio? Just outside of Stockholm. Yep, nice. And
So it's a privilege and like going between those environments.
right, yeah.
Make everything by myself, just interacting with other makers.
Is this the first body of work that you've had that has been picked up by Kosta Boda?
I started developing it at Kosta,
Yeah.
and it's stayed there ever since. And it's basically 2 years ago I started
Okay.
experimenting with these techniques, the color and the place.
Cool. This is fascinating for me because it's something that doesn't happen as much in the United States. So Simon is a glassblower. He's an independent artist. He makes his own work. He has his own glass studio. But he also makes work at Kosta Boda. So he was just talking to me a little bit about how long he's been working at Kosta. He's done this body of work with them for about 2 years. He obviously doesn't do this same body of work in his own studio because this is work that he's doing for Kosta. Okay, so now here we go with the transfer onto a rim punty, a punty on the rim. Hey, Tom. Tom, would you put on some gloves just in case? Or somebody? Is that a set right there or not? I'm being a backseat glassblower here. I want to make sure that if this hops off of both of these rods that Tom is there to catch it. Just in case. There we go. Nice. I like the insurance. I like that Tom had those on but didn't need them. It made me feel a little bit better. Thank you, Tom. Sorry to be the worry wart of the shop. I have faith in you all, believe me. Okay, great. So they made a transfer there. They're punnied on the rim now. That has to be a hollow punny too. So that's on a blowpipe because you can't close off a hot form. If they close off this hot form, it would start to pucker. And now Simon's working on making the punty to pick up the second piece. I've been carrying this thing around just to show you what the blank looks like. So this is a blank that we made that has it's called night blue inside, and this, not celadon green, this lime green on the exterior. So these objects that we're making today started out looking like this. Again, this is called a blank because it's intended to be cut. The color on the outside is on the very surface, and then that can be incised away. It can be cut away to create that pattern. One of the harder things to do is to get color on the very surface of a large object like that. The color that we use, and even the color they use in Sweden a lot, is in the form of these ingots. This is called color bar. This is the actual color we use for this object. It's a jade green. And what you have to do is, I don't know if I should talk about this because there's a Swedish way of doing it, and then there's the way that we did it, and we didn't do the Swedish way because it's hard. So there's something called a Swedish overlay. It's like so inherently Swedish that we call it the Swedish overlay, where you blow a bubble and then you put it on inside out over another bubble, and that way the color is on the very surface. So, I mean, if you can imagine a sock that's black on the inside and white on the outside, and you turn it inside out so the white is on the inside, and then you stick your toe in it and you pull the sock on, and then the black is on the outside. Did everybody follow me? That's a Swedish overlay. So the color, you get the color that's on the inside on the outside. What we did is that we used more of this color, and we blew it into a cup, and then we dripped the interior color into that cup, right? So instead of starting with a bubble and turning it inside out, we started with a cup and we dripped more glass inside of it. So the problem with our process is that the color layer is thicker and it's not on the very, very, very surface. So the Swedish overlay is the method to use, but it takes someone who does it really well. We had a glass artist here named Mika Johansson, who is, in my experience, the best at the Swedish overlays. Like he did these objects with 3 and 4 overlays, one over the other, and he used the technique to trap patterns of air bubbles, which is absolutely amazing. It's another Swedish technique called Ariel, but it's done in a similar way. So I digress, but that's how you get color on the outside of a bubble, and that's how you can cut through that color to create patterns. Okay. So Jeff and team are working over on bench number 14 over there. No, I'm kidding. On our second bench, on our second bench to clean up the bottom of this piece because they had that punny on there, and now they want to get the punny off. So he actually just put some hot glass on there to help him clean up the bottom a little bit. Brady, how are we doing online? Yep. No, that's a great question. So online they're asking, are we planning on adding more color or changing the size and shape of these objects? And the answer to that is no. So these cylinders are going to stay the same scale that they are, and we will not be adding more color. So it's more about how these two objects will come together, and then he also manipulates them a little bit to, I don't know, it's really cool, I think, because these are very, very geometric shapes with geometric patterns on the surface, and then he bends them and warps them, so you can see the geometry warped by the way he manipulates the objects. I think they're really, really cool things. Megan Bunnell has put together an amazing collection of up-and-coming designers from Kosta Boda in the shops here. And it's been so much fun to walk through the shops and talk about the different designers, where they are in their career. You know, it's a new generation, right? Simon has his own studio. He's more like a studio glass artist, but he's also working with Kosta Boda, and it's cool as an artist to see this new generation of designers working at Kosta, many of whom are talented glassmakers. I think it sort of takes a page from Bertil's book. I love it. Is anybody game for a little audience participation? Everybody shake your head yes. We're all going to do this. All right, it's going to be really easy. On the count of 3, I want everyone to say hey, okay? Are we ready? 1, 2, 3, hey! All right, that is our greeting to our Swedish guests. We just heard that Bertil is watching today. When you greet someone in Sweden, you say hey. So that was our greeting to our Swedish guests online. So Bertil, thank you so much for tuning in. It's been an awesome morning. It could only have been more awesome if you were here. And to everyone watching in Sweden, and especially at Kosta, thanks for tuning in. Shops 12 and 14, a shout out to you guys for the awesome work you've done with your designers and artists and Bertil over the years. And everyone else at Kosta Boda, we have such respect for the work that you all do and the role that you all play in the history of glass and the future of glass. So thank you so much for taking the time to tune in today and be a part of this. And we're doing our best to do you guys justice. The skill and the experience that you have working with these designers and artists, we are doing our best, but it, I'm sure, pales in the comparison to the work that you all do every day with these amazing artists and designers. Isn't that cool to know that 6 hours away and 5,000 miles, we have a group of folks watching in the Crystal Kingdom. So shout out to the Crystal Kingdom from the Crystal City. All right, I just had to get a little bit of an update from the team. I've never seen this one happen before. So, Simon is preparing. He's going to be the one who picks the other cylinder up on the rim. So he's prepared the plunger here, and it's a very stout plunger because after he gets that picked up and fire polished, they're going to be adding this cylinder to that cylinder. So they're going to be bringing them together hot. Should be very cool. Uh-oh. So Simon just flattened out his plunger a little bit. What do you think that means? I think the cylinder in the pickup oven might got a little hot. So it might be a little more oval right now than round. Is it a little bit oval, Jesse? A little bit. So, it could be worse, right? Because the opposite of oval is cracked, right? So if it's not warm enough, there's a good chance that it would break when we pull it out of there. So again, being the cautious one, erring on the side of safety and success, it's okay that it's a little flattened out a little bit because that means that it's probably warm enough to bring out of there without it breaking. So we have that pickup box set at 1,000 degrees, 1,100 degrees. 1,100 degrees, and for our Swedish friends, that's 1,100 Fahrenheit. And that's a temperature where, again, the glass is just starting to soften because if it's really rigid and it's just on the borderline, if you pick it up and put it in a 2,000 degree oven, there's a good chance it'll crack. So it feels a little better to have it a little bit warm, and they'll fix it. It'll be fine. Temperature's critical too, right? He wants that funnel or that plunger to stick to the rim of that. And even though the piece in the pickup box is 1,100 degrees, it's still a lot cooler than our 2,000 degree furnace, right? And that temperature difference, the more the difference in temperature is, the less it wants to stick. So Simon really got that plunger pretty hot. Can you see how dull the lines are in there in the box there? You could briefly. You could see that needs a little polishing. All right, nice job. It's not too out of round. We could fix that. And by we, I mean Simon, of course. Okay, he wants the marver. Our marver has been a table all day long, so we're going to clear off our table, give it a good wipe here, and that way he can roll it on there a bit and round it up. He's starting on the plunger, and that's clever, right? Because the plunger, he got out of round, and that's going to influence the rest of the shape of the rest of the piece. So he started up at the top. That's the hardest part to heat. So he has some heat in the plunger. So he started by making that a little bit more round, and then he'll work down to the tip of the bubble, the part that's closest to all of us, because that's much easier to heat, and that's much easier to manipulate than the part that's way up by the blowpipe. I know I said this in the beginning of this whole program, but I did want to thank Megan Bunnell and the shops once again, highlighting the purpose of this shop. One of the purposes of this shop and what we do is to highlight the work of artists. And that happens for artists who are showing, who have work in our museum here. That happens for artists who hope to someday or will someday have work in the museum here. But I want to just underscore that a very important part of being an artist is not only being in museums, but it's also selling work, right? You can't be an artist if you don't make a living, and you really don't make a living by putting your work only in museums. It's an amazing thing, and it's a great accolade, but it doesn't pay the bills, so to speak, right? And so one of the things that's evolved over the last couple of years is working with the shop to highlight the work of artists with the purpose of helping them sell their work, right? Because we want to support artists in all that they do. And supporting an artist means helping them gain recognition for the level of their work, helping them increase the understanding of the complexity of their work, and then hopefully selling some of that work, because that's what it takes to be an artist. So I'd really like to thank Megan and Shelley and the shops for really bringing this initiative to us and saying it's an important thing to help artists make a living, to help artists gain recognition for their work. And it's been a very cool thing. And we do it with individual artists. We've done it with Kosta Boda, obviously. I think back, we worked with an artist named Kat Labont for many years who makes really, really wonderful pieces that are for sale in our shops here. And it's been great for us to be a small part of Kat's success because, we're all artists here. A lot of us sell our own work, and we know how hard that can be sometimes because of people's perception of the value of things and how much work goes into it. But there's no greater way of sharing the value of making something by hand than by doing it in front of people and letting them be part of that experience. So that's a really cool role that we play and a very important part of what we do here. There's been another thing recently that I think has helped tremendously in helping spread awareness of what it takes to make glass. Has anyone seen that show on Netflix called Blown Away? Yeah. So that's really been a great thing, I think, for glass artists. It's been a great thing for us here at the museum. It's a competition reality show, right? So that's preloaded. You think about competition reality in different ways. There's lots of different shows, but we've worked with the production company called Marble Media and with Netflix and the crew on Blown Away for the past 3 seasons, and I have to say we're really proud of the product and we're really happy to be a part of it. Okay, so now back to the show. Simon is planning his approach. So the Tom Ryder over here on the main bench, that's going to be the bass, that's going to be the receiver, and then the one that Jeff and Helen have been working on the second bench, or that's our assistance bench we call it, is going to be applied to the bass. So right now they're calculating their approach to landing here. So we really want the base to be warm, to be a little bit chewy, not cold, not brittle, but stable, right? It has to be just in the sweet spot. And then the piece that Simon has, it's going to be a little warmer. It's going to be a little hotter because it needs to stick. It needs to become part of this other component. All right. Here we go. I can see where that one's hot, right? Mostly on the tip. Flip and stick. Look at that. How cool is that? I love it too, Megan. Isn't that awesome? So awesome. And I again, like that geometric pattern, those cylindrical shapes, like what a better way to show the fluidity of glass and the way it behaves when it's hot. I think, glass it's a crazy material, right? But some of the coolest pieces, even when they're cold and static, remind you that this was a molten material, that it was manipulated while it was moving. Awesome work. The white, there's a question online, what's the white chalk-looking stuff that they put on the pipe? It's chalk. Sorry, I don't not to be cheeky about it, but yeah, we use a little piece of chalk, and there was a particular side of this object that Simon wanted to attach the piece to, and so sometimes we use the chalk to remind ourselves which side is up or which side we want to manipulate, because when it's spinning, you think you'll remember, but sometimes you forget. How sweet is that? We work in a museum that has 4,000-year history of glass. There's all kinds of objects in here from all kinds of people. But you know you can always do something new, and that's what's awesome about glass. And I just love seeing something new and seeing the creativity that comes through here. This is something I've never seen before, right? And you'd think in a place with thousands of objects and thousands of years that everything has been done. But man, human creativity, what an awesome thing. So now they're working on, I mean, they had so much heat in the base of that piece, right? And, you know, just like Bertil's castings, you don't just want to throw it in the oven right away because you're worried about it moving. I don't think they're going to manipulate this a whole lot anymore, but they do need to equalize it. They need to even out the temperature. So you can see, I can see just by the color, the jade green piece near the pipe, see how it's a little bit more rich in color? That's because it's cooler. You know, you as a glassmaker, you learn how these different colors look at different temperatures. So the bottom part's a little cooler still. The top part is still a little bit hotter. So we're going to take some time to equalize temperatures to get things evened out here so that we know this is going to be successful, that it won't continue to move when we put it into the oven. Just grabbing it with one of the Kevlar gloves, making sure that that's perched on there just right. I've already seen Simon's work in the shops, but I'm going to run out and look at it again after this demo. You just see it through a different lens, right? Like there's nothing like seeing it happen in front of your eyes. You know, Jeff has put on his spaceman suit. He's ready. He's going to catch this one and put it by hand into the cooling oven. As we're winding down, does anybody have any other questions? Yes? How heavy is this one? It's about twice this one. You know, not a lot. This is 5-6 pounds. You know, so maybe together, this is 10, 12 pounds. But it's awkward. It's like moving a mattress, right? You know, if you could grab a mattress like this and move it, it's not bad. But if you have to move a big mattress, it's awkward. You know, having something on the end of a blowpipe, you know, the blowpipe gives you poor leverage. The glass is hot and moving around. So it can seem heavy on the end of that pipe. This is really long, you know, and there's a lot of torque on that fulcrum on that punty. So, yeah, it's easy to hold when it's cold, but when it's hot and wiggly, sometimes people say it's like a baby. You know, a baby's, you know, 8, 10, 12 pounds, but they wiggle, right? So. All right. So obviously this piece is going to need some cold working on the rim and on the base to get those caps off, but that's part of the process, just like the cold working to put the pattern in this. A little bit of water on that punny. Oh, hey, that's a good thing. That thing had to come off anyway. It just saved some work. There we go, into the oven. Big round of applause for Simon Clonell. That was an awesome demonstration. I get it, right? We saw that thing fall off and you think, oh, something bad happened. That top is going to be cold worked anyway. That probably came off pretty clean. They might have to grind a little bit more off, but really no problem. It's all good. All right, so before I let you all go, how about another round of applause for Simon Clonell, of course, first. Another one? Okay, all right. There's another piece in the oven, and we just need to pick it up and fire polish it. So I was going to send you on your way. We've got 10 minutes, though, and these glass blowers, you know, they're like, come on, I got 10 minutes. actually, they have more than that. So, yeah, we're going to move on. Question, yes, sir. The oven that we put the... Oh, the reheating furnace. Thank you. Yep. So the reheating furnace we actually keep at 2,100 degrees. So our glass melting furnace is around the same temperature. The reheating furnace is around that same temperature. Sometimes we have that reheating furnace a little bit warmer. You know, it depends on how you like to work. But we can change the temperature of that one. The other thing about the reheating furnace is that we shut it off every night. So it's less efficient. It has big doors. You can see that piece got larger, and they needed to open those doors to get in and out. So it's less efficient than our furnaces. Our furnaces, like the one in the center there with the silver bottom, that's like a big thermos. That runs 24 hours a day. We opened the shop in 2016. We just changed our furnace this past spring. So that furnace ran from 2016 until 2023 without shutting it off. And so we want that to be very efficient. So that's a big thermos that stays on all the time. I know this is more than what you asked, but that's also why we try to keep that door closed. And that has all the glass in it. But the reheating furnaces, and you can see we even have different sized ones. Like this is our jumbo reheating furnace here. So if we're making something really big and wide, we turn that thing on. But that jumbo uses more than twice the energy of the other reheating furnace, which is big in itself. So no, those are all natural gas. We do have an electric shop. Actually our glass melting furnace in our back shop is electric. So you see that more and more, right? You think about renewables. And the really cool thing about not this studio, but our electric shop that's in the other part of the museum is that the museum recently was sort of, as part of our partnership with Corning Incorporated, Corning offered us an allotment of renewable energy. And so the electric shop in the museum, and really more than a third of our total power usage is from renewables now. And so it's really cool to be a part of that part of the future of glassmaking, to have a shop that we can legitimately say runs on renewable energy from Western New York State is pretty awesome. So solar, wind, and hydroelectric, which is very cool. Okay, so yeah, these are natural gas furnaces though. In terms of the glory holes, we have an electric glory hole upstairs. These natural gas reheating furnaces, or glory holes as glassmakers call them, they have a little bit more oomph. They have a little more horsepower than the electric ones. So if you open the door on the electric reheating furnace, it'll lose temperature and it doesn't regain it as quickly as these natural gas ones do. All right, so there's another object in there. It's based on the same color pattern and form as that blank that I was holding around. So it's a square one. It's got the cutting on the surface. He's going to pick that up and manipulate it. There was another question about the cameras too. So I just, again, I want to thank our digital team and Brad on camera, and I think Eric is up in the booth up there. So we have an operator up there changing cameras for us today to make sure that we can follow the action around. And another thing that we do in our daily demos here is we have the cameras run by an automated switch that has to do with proximity. So where you're standing on the stage, it switches to different cameras. But this is kind of an atypical operation today, so we have a live camera operator. All right, so now we're going to get that last vessel out of the oven there. This one's square, so if it got a little hot, it's still square, so that's good. Different than the round one that flattened out a little bit.
Are we stuck?
All right. So there we go. Nice. Go right into the oven. Ooh, it's wily. You want to pick it up on a soft punny so it sticks, but then that makes it a little wily. Makes it. You gotta really give it. Get your twisting motion in there. The punny slipped off center a little bit, so he's just gonna set it on the table here and press the punny down so it gets back on center. So whenever something's off center, it's kind of hard just working concentric just works so much better. It's easier to turn. It feels better. We're getting near the end of our presentation here and online. So for anybody who's joined us today, thank you. If anyone's joined us recently, we're working with Simon Clonell here. He's a Swedish glass artist and designer, and he's here today to share one of the designs with us that he makes in conjunction with his work at Kosta Boda. The museum in our shops here and online is featuring a whole bunch of work from up-and-coming designers, established and up-and-coming designers at Kosta Boda. So we're really excited to be part of that. And of course, paying homage to Bertil Vallien and his 60-year career in glass and glass design, his pioneering career in glass and glass design. I think I also read 40 years of showing in the United States, which all started in New York City at Heller Gallery, which is also amazing to think of. Glass just loves to be round. I think we made this square shape, and if you look at the rim of this, when you get it hot, it just likes to be round. But this piece is, I think he's going to heat up and push around a little bit more. This is just an individual object. It's not going to have another piece stuck to it, but some of the pieces are just manipulated again to play with that geometry of the form and of the surface texture. You can see right inside of that 2,000-degree furnace. I'm so used to it, I don't even talk about it anymore, but isn't that a cool view right inside of that reheating furnace? All right, see, he's squaring the top back off. When you get glass hot and you turn it, it doesn't want to be square. All right, so they're eyeing up the next manipulation phase here, starting to use that hot torch a little bit. Is this one night blue inside, Jeff? Yeah, so it's the same colors as this one. It almost looks like that jade green when it's hot. Okay. Any other questions in the shop here or online? I love this fire polishing. It's something I did in my work a lot when I was in grad school, where you manipulate the surface of something when it's cold, and then you pick it up hot again and polish it up a little bit. It's almost like a switch. You can see when that dullness goes away, it almost happens in a flash. Oh, that's a good question. Hey, Simon, what do you call these square ones? Do you have a name for them, for the objects? Yeah. Right. He said this one doesn't really have a title. They usually get different titles based on the geometry, but he said not these square ones. There's a question online. It said the round ones are called tubular. What are these called? There's a balance when you're trying to fire polish something. If it's thin, if you go in there and get it really hot all at once, you can lose your shape really easily. So my guess is he's using the torch here to get that polish to keep the heat on the surface and not heat the whole thing to lose the shape. Also, the heat near the pipe, it's harder to get the heat near the pipe. Okay, so now he's got a manipulation tool. This is called an inside sculpting tool. If you're familiar with the work of a Czech artist named Martin Janetsky, he uses these sculpting tools to sculpt faces and animals and all kinds of cool things. Simon's going to use it to buckle the shape of this a little bit. So again, spot heat. In the reheating furnace, the heat is very general, right? So if you want to manipulate a particular spot, it's really nice to be able to use this hot torch here. And again, that's an oxypropane or oxy-natural gas torch that we use there to get that spot heat. All right, so see that pressing out from the inside there? Nice camera work, Brad. How cool is that? Now they're picking another spot for the next maneuver. Tom's just maintaining the heat. We always want to keep the whole thing warm, even though they're manipulating just particular parts of it. If the glass cools too much as we're working on it, it could easily crack. Sorry. All right, so there, another manipulation from the inside. Expanding that grid. It's always a little bit awkward when you come into a different shop and work. Simon said he has his own studio, knows where everything is. But the team here is really good about being accommodating, and hopefully he feels at home. But we always say it's like cooking in someone else's kitchen. So this time we're going in a little bit. Very cool. Now to work on getting the right exterior shape formed back up, we have some cork paddles. These are a great tool that you can use to manipulate the surface of glass without marring it up too much. So I'm going to guess he's going to work on getting the top squared back up a little bit. You can see with all that manipulation and all that heat, it started to come out of round just a hair, or out of square, sorry. So there we go, just a touch on the surface. Nice. What a fantastic object. That's awesome. All right, picture for Instagram. And then some flashing to cool it down. It's good. It's good and it's done. So Katie's going to suit up. All right, and as we wind down here, I certainly want to thank everyone online for tuning in, especially our friends from Sweden, and especially Bertil Vallien. Thanks for joining us virtually, and our friends from Kosta in Sweden, and everyone else who took the time today to be part of this and to watch some amazing sandcast work with Cecilia, and some amazing hollow forms made here with Simon. What a privilege today to be part of this creativity. All right, so Katie gets the nod from Simon. Last flash. All right, so now to get it off the punty, a little bit of water. And a nice little tap. Comes right off. All right. Into the annealing oven. You can see the other piece in there. And there it is, safe and sound. Everybody, big round of applause for Simon Clennell. For the team from Kosta Boda here, for Cecilia and Bertil, we want to thank you all for joining us today here at the museum and online, of course. Thanks for spending your time with us, and have a fantastic afternoon. Thanks, everyone.